To honor Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we speak with filmmaker Jon Osaki on his newly released film, Making Waves: The Rise of Asian America, a film on the creation of the Asian American identity through the creation of Asian American studies across the country and what it means to us today.
Well, I think so. We started this project back in 2021, and I originally got into it because I was contacted by some of the faculty at UC Berkeley's Asian American Studies Department, and because they were under siege. The administration had been steadily pulling support from that department. They were down to just a handful of faculty, and this is one of the legacy Asian American Studies programs in the country, right? Actually, technically the first. And so for that department to be in trouble in that way, but also the fact that the community knew nothing about it, right? Like all of the original activists, faculty from that department, they had all retired. And so the new faculty did not have relationships with folks in the community. They were academics, right? They just had a different background than some of the previous faculty that many of us knew. And so when they reached out, it was pretty clear that they didn't know how to fight. And so they called a summit. I was asked to make a short video for that gathering, which was, very successful. But, in the midst of learning about what was happening there and putting together this short video for this summit, I realized that there was a much larger story here, right? Like the evolution of ethnic studies in this country, both in terms of its origins, was obviously a very important story. It's been told many times, but how it's evolved and how it impacts young people or even older people, right, who have gone through those programs, the real impact on them, that really hasn't been told.
Jon explains the creation of the Asian American identity in the United States that takes us back to the 60s and 70s.
Well, I think in the original student movement that created ethnic studies in this country, what came out for many of those young people is they didn't know their histories. They didn't understand the experiences that their parents or their grandparents had gone through. And for many Japanese Americans, the whole experience of concentration camps was not talked about within the family. And so many people in my generation had no idea it even happened. And so as they started to understand how systemic racism had affected Asian Americans historically, as well as other communities of color, they started to demand that this history that was not being taught in schools was made available.
Like many documentaries, Jon explains the surprises he encountered making this film.
And then what really surprised us as we started to move through this project was all the current movements happening right now, and that there are these really vibrant Asian American communities all over the country, right, who are fighting for their stories to be told. And I think that was really one of the things that surprised us the most, but really inspired us the most.
The fight for Asian American identity and awareness doesn't stop with this film, as Jon explains.
So, very fortunate that we have been, our team has received funding from the Asian American Foundation to launch an impact campaign. So we're going to be going into communities like Ohio and Georgia and North Carolina and back to Texas to really use this film as a way to organize communities, to draw attention and build a base of support for ethnic studies movement, inclusive ethnic studies movement. I want to be sure to emphasize that. It's not about just Asian Americans, it's about all communities of color, making sure everybody's stories are told. We're going to use the next year, maybe 2 years, to really use this film to build a base, right? And a groundswell of support for ethnic studies, for inclusive studies, for making sure that we're not whitewashing history, we're not sanitizing systemic racism that has impacted all communities of color. So that's really what I'm going to be focused on with this project, and very grateful that we have the resources to go out to different communities that, you know, frankly aren't known for having Asian American communities, right? It's not on the coast, right? It's going to be in the Deep South, it's going to be in the Midwest, but we really hope to use this film as a means to, you know, really empower them.
Jon shares his perspective on why this fight is a necessary one for us to consider.
Because when you talk about discrimination, and they have this playbook which tries to pit, you know, white Americans as being discriminated against by education policies like diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's really the opposite. It's really the other way around. It's all this wealth in this country is owned by this elite few, and they don't want to share it. They don't want to pay their taxes. They don't want to distribute the wealth in this country. They want to hold on to it, and they're just fine with that. And so that's really what's going on in this country. That's, at the end of the day, that's what it all boils down to.
If you'd like to see upcoming screenings of Jon's film, visit www.jjmlproductions.com. Or find out more about the work that the Asian American Foundation is doing, visit taaf.org. This is Greg Valoria for the Nichibei Cafe.